Hey Greg, how are you doing?
Hey, good afternoon. I'm doing
Okay,
well.
what's this?
I'm doing well.
Good. So today, the title of our little chat is "What's the point of a contract?" And the reason we chose this title is that it's one of the comments that always comes back to us. Almost every single time there's a EMD dispute, there's an issue with possession handoff, there's an issue with the term of a contract. There's an issue with a buyer agency agreement, issue with any one of these, anything you're signing with your customers or signing with a buyer, seller, you name it. When someone breaches a contract, almost every single time someone walks to us and goes, "So what's the point of this contract, Greg? If we have the terms all decided here and someone just breaches the contract and there's nothing we can do, can you please make them do this? Can you please force them to abide by this contract?" And I think that's why I wanted to have this conversation today was like, so what is the point of a contract, Greg? And what happens when someone breaches a contract? What's the right way to look at this?
Well, a couple things. Number one is we've always been very focused on building a business. And to build a business, you need referrals and repeat business, right?
Okay.
So the reason that agents don't get repeat and referral business, even if you sell the house, get it closed, everything seems to have been fine, that's not enough any longer to get repeat and referral, to have somebody yank it away from you. So then the real question becomes, how do you prepare people for the experience they're about to go through? And as you're bringing up, Paul, what's the value of that paper, of that contract, right? And so, well, number one, it's very valuable and it guides
Oh,
most transactions to a
so
closing.
there we go. So it's essentially our guide, right? It's two
It's a,
people
yeah,
agreeing to terms.
it's a path. It's a path. And as long as everybody stays on that path, everything works. And then periodically, what we have is we have miscommunication, we have misinterpretation, we've got two interpretations of what it really says. And so, because agents aren't attorneys, they don't necessarily approach this contract the way an attorney might.
So one of the things you said earlier that I'm just gonna pop in here real quick was you used a word called a weasel clause, or used a word called like maybe like a gotcha clause.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example of a clause. Let's just use the possession clause. Not everyone's contract spells out exactly how you calculate the possession days. So let's say seller gets 30 days possession in the home. When is day one? Right?
The
And,
day
what you'll
following.
see is, and what you'll see is a buyer's agent has one idea of that date, a seller has another idea of that date.
And if there's no,
Or,
Paul, and if there's no communication, the buyer may actually have their moving van pull up on what they think is
yep, they've arranged all their mechanicals, utilities, moving truck. And you know what? The listing agent or the buying agent might be like, yeah, that sounds like the right day to me. I think that's the right day. So these contracts are riddled with areas where people can miscommunicate.
so take the deposit. Um, do most
EMDs.
sellers think if the deal falls apart that they get to keep the deposit?
Yep. This is one of the most
Yeah.
common issues that we face right now is with EMDs on these contracts. So here's the most common scenario. Deal falls apart. Buying agent says, hey, due to X, Y, and Z, we have the right to exit this contract because of whatever the contract says. We have the right to exit. And we send a little release saying we'd like our full EMD returned. Seller goes, hmm, I know that's what they're saying, but I
I
think
don't
maybe they're
believe them.
leaving. Yeah, I don't believe him. I think maybe they found a better house. I think maybe they're killing this deal because they got a better home they like better that they want to buy. And I don't want to release the EMD. I'm not going to sign that release. Okay. Now here we go. Realtor calls up, hey, we've got a problem. They won't release our EMD, but we're owed our EMD. I look at the contract, I go, yeah, looks to me like you exited for the right reasons. You had every right in the book to exit the contract, and you are owed the EMD. And then You call the listing agent's broker and they go, well, we got some questions. We're not so sure we agree that that's the reason they're leaving. I'm like, okay, so here we are. We're in a standoff. Then our realtor, who's got the buyer, says, but Paul, the contract says they get their EMD back. It's written in the contract. Everyone signed it. And they go, well, Paul, I'd like you to make them release it. Okay, I can't do that. So I call other listing brokerage. I go, hey, we'd like you to release it. And he goes, I can't make my seller sign that. The brokers can't control anything on that contract. Who can control a contract, Greg? Who is the only person who can make a contract get executed? Talking to you. Who's the only party? Who's the only party that can force a contract to be executed?
The courts.
A judge and a court. A buyer can't force it. Seller can't force it. Realtors can't force it. Brokers can't force it. Only a judge with a gavel can force a contract to get executed. And this is one of the more maddening things about these real estate contracts is so often buyers and sellers don't understand that that's what happens. They think that you and I have some magical ability to wave a wand and make the contract just get executed properly.
Well, what really happens is that many times one agent thinks the other agent is being a jerk,
Yeah. Someone's a crook.
and that they're just doing this to make my life difficult. And in reality, it may be very well be that their client and they're representing their client, so they can't really call you up and say, "Hey, I want you to know I really disagree with my client here,
No,
and I'm going to do everything I can to help you get this money back." You can't.
absolutely.
You're representing
So
your party.
this is one of those things too. And like, let's take a buyer agency contract, like any one of these contracts, right? Like, let's say that your buyer signs a buyer agency contract with you. You're now repping them. And over the weekend, they go to an open house and write an offer on that open house and get it accepted directly with the listing agent. Okay?
So
This one
you,
happens all the time.
yep. And the agent who had the contract signed feels like the other person must have said something negative about
Right.
them.
So the realtor over here who has the buyer agency contract decides the listing agent is the crook.
Right.
And if we have to go, you don't have a contract with that listing agent. You have a contract with your buyer.
Yeah.
So they're like, well, I think the listing agent owes me 50% of the commission. I'm like, well, maybe, maybe not. I don't know, but there's only one place you can make this happen in the court of law.
Yeah.
And so it's just not as simple as, but what does the contract say? It's just
Right.
not that simple.
So really, Paul, what we're really talking about here right now is we've seen just about anything and everything that can happen, right?
Hmm.
And every now and then we get surprised and we see a new one, but generally speaking, they fall in these categories of, well, this is on the contract, and but the parties are disagreeing. And so the question then becomes, how have you educated your client, whether it's the buyer or the seller? And if you've done a really good job of educating them, teaching them, coaching them, mentoring them, explaining to them, even to the point where because buyers and sellers don't do this more than a couple times on average in a lifetime, how do they know what to ask? When they're sitting across the table from you and you're filling out the legal contracts, they don't know what to ask you. They haven't done
Well,
it.
I'll give you an example. So you're filling out a purchase agreement and you come down to the earnest money deposit section. And I say to you, Greg, hey, Greg, the EMD, I think $5,000 is the right number for an EMD. Does that sound okay for you? You're like, yep, I can write a check for 5,000, no problem. Let me get my checkbook. You write the check for $5,000. You slide the $5,000 check over to me as we're filling out the purchase agreement. And I say, great. Well, just so you know, this is refundable. If for any reason we walk away during our inspection window or whatever, during one of those contingencies, it's a fully refundable EMD.
That's not enough.
Am I accurate or not?
Well, you didn't tell the full story.
Yeah. I didn't say, oh, but if the seller disputes anything that we say and they don't sign a mutual release, your earnest money deposit is now stuck until a judge tells us where it goes.
And there's nothing I can't force my broker to release it.
Mm-mm.
I can't force the other broker to release it. Um,
Yep.
we need a mutual release from both parties.
And
So,
if that seller says no, the
right.
money is stuck
Yeah.
and you are forced to go to small claims or some sort of a legal
I used to
procedure to
tell,
release it.
I used to tell the buyers when I'd work with them, I'd say, look at, you can get this money back, assuming that we followed all of the contingencies that are in this document. And, but what we can't do is I can't force the seller or the other agent to sign a mutual release if they believe that there's more to the story. So it might have to sit there for a while, but as long as we have followed the contract, you will get your money back.
Yeah, might just be a process. But these are the things that are not explained and they're just left open at like I think we get so used to running through these contracts and having these conversations, we don't think to go, I need to make you fully aware of what happens at EMD if there's a dispute. It's stuck.
Yeah. Yeah. And
You
then
know? And
on the seller side, Paul, it's, I used to sit with a seller and I would say, look at the buyer has put down this $5,000 and the deal says here, if they back out, you get to keep it. However, there's a number of contingencies built in here, and some of them you won't like because one of them says that if they are unable to get financing, well, if they can go to a lender who will write a letter that says they can't finance them, you don't get to say, well, hey, you need to call my guy. No, you don't get to do
yeah,
that.
we can't have a Supreme Court hearing over whether or not they coerced the bank into giving them a denial letter
Yes.
for a few $1,000 EMD check, right? Like, and sometimes I've seen contracts too, like check this one out. We've seen it where a buyer and seller have a closing date on the contract. Well, the closing date comes and goes. Seller says, "Oh, goody, I've got a way better backup offer back here, and I'm gonna blow them out of the water on that final day." I'm like, "Hey, we're done, right? I've got a backup offer here," and they want to take the higher offer. Not so fast. If that if that buyer says, "Well, hold on, we've been working in good faith here over the past week. You knew we were waiting on a couple things from the lending company. You knew we were waiting on a couple things from over here." And you never told me that it was you were gonna rip it out of my hands on the final day. A judge might say to you, "Well, I know that the closing date came and went, but I think the intent of all parties was to work together to get this to a closing. So that date doesn't really matter." And then you have a seller and a listing agent who thought they had a plan to blow the first offer out of the water, but they can't. And they're going, "You never told me that's how it works, Mr. Realtor, Mrs. Realtor. I didn't know that final closing date on this contract wasn't set in stone." So I think what I see a lot of is people look at contracts like they're impossible to breach, they're just obvious and everyone should execute them perfectly. And there's weird gray areas. And if you talk about them so black and white with your customer, like you're not aware, you're not making them aware of like someone could fight you on your EMD. We might not hit the closing date. It doesn't automatically mean you can take the backup offer. Like this is not so simple.
Yeah. Yeah. We've had, take possession. We've had it where the buyer shows up for possession on a day that the contract says seller's not out. Well, guess what? You can't break into the house.
No, we
No
have squatters' rights.
breaking and entering.
These people don't have these. You have to evict them. Then the people are going, "What do you mean I have to evict the people from the home I just bought?" And I
Yep.
go, "Technically, they're now basically renters of yours, and you have to go through a 30-day window. You have to give them 30 days to evict them."
So really what we're saying right now up to this point is that you have to understand this well enough to be able to discuss these items with your clients up front while you're putting the contract in front of them or while you're receiving a contract. You have to have enough knowledge to be able to share more with them. So when one of these events takes place, they're not going to be shocked. What they're going to do is, you know what? You were absolutely right. You brought this up when we sat down, getting ready to list it or write that offer, and now it's happening to us. You guys know that 15% of all contracts fall apart every year. And
Hmm.
we've averaged that amount since the very beginning of time. I don't know why it's that number, but I wanted to go on to I wanted to talk about this area of preparing a buyer of what a seller might do. We give tip a lot of times here in this area, we traditionally um, we give 30 days after close. So the
For
close
possession, yep.
happens, the money transfers hands. Once that money transfers hands, how much power does the buyer have to bring that seller back to do something? Almost zero.
Hmm.
All right.
And are
Something
you referring to um, like let's say they live in the house and they spill grape juice all over the floor, and now your floors are stained.
and they move the sofa to cover it.
And then you move in, and you're like, what's this damage on my house that I bought?
Yeah. Yep. So anyway, I've looked at this throughout my career in real estate, and it's like sellers take things they're not supposed to take. Sellers break things on the move out that they should repair and don't. And sellers leave more junk on the property than they should leave.
But
They don't bring the house to where it is supposed to be.
so
So,
on the same topic, most of these things are addressed in the contract.
well, here's the problem. Once that seller gets their money, they're gone.
Yeah, they have
And
no
so
incentive to come on
this
back
is
and bring a truck over
so this
and empty the
is
house out.
I want to show you what I believe would be an expert conversation to have with a buyer. And it would go kind of like this. It would say, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I know in my history that sellers can take things, break things, and leave things that they shouldn't do. But I know also that when they get their money and they're gone, your realtor, their realtor cannot make these people come back to the table.
Hmm.
They cannot make them write a check. They cannot make them fix it. Once they get their money, they're gone. So here's what I would tell a buyer. I would say, I'm going to advise you to do something, and then I'm going to explain why you would want to consider this before you do it. So here's what we do. We're going to ask that the seller leave a $5,000 deposit at the title company or the brokerage, which is going to be held until the seller has moved out and we have approved everything is where it's supposed to be. If any of these items are not where they're supposed to be, we can immediately be given the $5,000 that was set aside. Here's the problem. If you're writing an offer and there's multiple offers being submitted, and your offer is the only one that's asking the seller to withhold $5,000, what's the likelihood that you're going to win that offer? Everything else is the same. You're going to
It's gonna be
lose.
tough. It's gonna be tough because if I'm a seller and I'm looking at that, I'm going, well, they're gonna find a way to keep my 5 grand. They're gonna look for every little nook and cranny, every little carpet issue, every single little ding on the trim, every little dent in the drywall, every
So,
little thing possible. They're gonna grab all 5,000 of that.
so what's the value then of this conversation? Well, I'm going to tell you what I think the value is. I believe that by going down that road and telling them about this is the solution, but also telling them about, well, this is what could happen because of that. And then now it's their decision, right? They have to decide at this moment, do they want to put it in? Do they want to keep it out?
Hmm.
But either way, you've now had this discussion. And I would go further and I would follow up the meeting with an email that says, Mr. and Mrs. Seller or Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I just want to make sure that we've covered this fully. I advised you that this is what you could do to protect yourself at the end of this deal when you get possession. You've chosen with the understanding that you don't want to do that because you don't want to do anything that's going to prevent this seller from accepting your offer. That's your,
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, what you're kind of describing here is like help your clients, whether they're buyers or sellers, go in with eyes wide open on the contract. Too often it's just pop the number here. Here's our closing date. Here's our general timeline. Here's some requests. But we're really not explaining all of the little like hang-ups, the gotcha clauses in here, the weasel clauses, as you put them, the things that are misunderstood and often disputed. And oftentimes the client says, "You never told me that was possible."
Right. Right. So what I'm doing is saying that if you are the consummate pro, you are the expert, you do this every day. These people do it once or twice in a lifetime. I honestly believe just because they don't ask the questions doesn't alleviate you of the
Hmm.
responsibility to say, you know what? I know you haven't done this before. You've only done it one time or two times before. If I were in your shoes, I would have some more questions. Matter of fact, let me throw out a couple things right now that if I were in your shoes, that I would be asking me as your realtor.
Yep.
And but because you don't experience this regularly, you don't have. So if you want to be that person that they go and tell their friends and family and say, you know what? I want you to know that we didn't even know what to ask, but our realtor started asking questions of himself or herself to help us understand every little thing that could take place in this transaction. You know what?
Hmm.
That is service. That's why I'm willing to pay my realtor what they're asking.
Hmm.
Not just, I don't want that realtor that just lists my home and sells it and we have all sorts of stuff happen and they walk away with their commission and
Yeah.
and we had all sorts of stress and tension. I thought I was hiring a real estate agent to educate me and teach me and keep me and guide me and
Yep.
all these other things. And I think many realtors have gotten into the thing about, well, hey, you asked me to sell your home, I got it sold, right?
I think a lot of realtors have looked at their job as actually as a marketing job. Where I pop the house online, I make some videos, um, I procure another realtor or another buyer for your property. But
Yeah.
I think that's short-sighted. I think those things are um obviously important,
Yeah.
but
Is it going to be,
showmanship
well,
matters to some extent. But I think that you'll be surprised at how far that expertise and that care goes.
is the experience enough to make them unapologetically be willing to go tell the world about what you just did for them? And again, we all get to the closing mostly, but we don't all get referrals. And we all know, we've heard it from all the experts tell us that every happy, satisfied, excited customer client knows four people that are going to move, buy or sell in the next 12 months.
Hmm.
Why are we willing to accept just the one deal? I
Yeah.
was never willing to
Yeah.
just think it's all just about this one paycheck. It's about
If
this
you
sale. It's
and not to go down a totally different rabbit trail here, but like if you, but I think it's related. I think I'm just piggybacking on what you're saying here. If you are only getting one transaction from somebody and that's it, and then you get another transaction from them another 7 or 10 years down the road, um, it's a tough business. It's a grind because the best realtors on the planet on planet Earth are relying on those referrals.
one of
And
the
so so I think real quickly here, so I would challenge you right now, if you look at your business and if you aren't getting any referrals from past customers or not enough, like don't compare it to your total business. Just focus on those referrals for a second or just look at the referrals from past customers. If you're not getting a handful, like if you have 25 past customers, 100 past customers, you should be getting a serious contingent of, hey, I got your name from so and so, and hey, I know you worked with my friend so and so, and hey, I'd like to work with you. If those aren't coming to you, you really need to spend some time thinking about why.
Be honest. Be
There's a
honest.
missing component here, and it's a real one. And the numbers prove it out. And every single statistic about real estate, the numbers prove that that is the largest group of body of business available is these referral business. And if you're not getting it, then you're leaving it on the table, and we have to know why. So, like, I'd rather go why rather than like, well, referral business is hooey. I don't believe in that. I'm just gonna keep making TikToks or whatever. And I'm not anti-TikTok. I'm just saying like this one, if you're ignoring it, is leaving real money on the table. Like you have a gold mine you're not tapping into.
So, commissions on average have increased tremendously. And
You
these
mean like raw
people,
amounts, like of the actual dollar amounts because of the inflation of
raw
property.
amounts, you could say it's an average of what, 8,000 to 10,000 or whatever. But
Whatever your average marketplace is.
so these people right now still believe in our industry. I want them to continue believing in our industry and that there's a reason why you call up a real estate agent. It's
You know,
because you go over and above, you eliminate problems, you thoroughly explain, you prevent disruptions, you eliminate surprises, you reduce tensions, and you help them walk through the negotiations in a calm, cool, collected way.
you know what's interesting on that topic while we're talking about referrals here? I can find the actual stat, but I'm just gonna kind of summarize what it basically said. It basically the point is like if you think about a marketplace where hypothetically you'd never have an easier time finding a buyer for your home. Do you think it's easier to find a buyer for your home when there's 10,000 homes available or when there's 100 available? What do you think?
You're asking me again?
Yeah, I'm asking you, I'm talking to you.
This isn't a hypothetical.
No.
Probably 10,000.
You think it's easier to find a buyer for your home if I throw one listing into a market of 10,000 available homes versus if I throw one home into available market of 100 homes?
Well, it's a lot easier for a buyer with a lot of houses available. So,
Right. So as a seller who's popping a buyer on the marketplace, if I'm one of 100 or one of 10,000, you tell me what my odds are.
okay.
Oh, really? Cool. Well, let's think about this.
100.
Inventory. Come on, man. Come on, man. I'm talking about inventory here. So what I'm saying is this. In the Great Recession, where we had 15,000 homes in the marketplace on average in whatever market you're in, right? 18,000, 20,000, 30,000 homes, depending on your marketplace. The usage of realtors was dropping, which is odd because that's the hardest time to get noticed in a flooded marketplace. Now, fast forward to today, where it's relatively easy. You have Zillow and all these other websites out there. You can pop any listing on those marketplaces, and you don't need a realtor to do it. And there's no homes available. But the usage of realtors is near an all-time high right now. That's what my point was. My point was, why are people in a marketplace that is probably the easiest market ever to drop a listing on an MLS and get noted, or drop a listing onto the Zillow and get noticed? Why are they increasingly using realtors?
Well, yeah. And I
But do you
understand.
follow, I'm just, you don't have to give me an answer on that one. I'm not asking you the question necessarily. But what I'm saying is the usage of realtors in the face of AI, in the face of a short marketplace, tight marketplace where everything gets noticed because everyone can see all seven houses that are available. Realtors are being used more than ever.
I think there's um, a lot of realtors that are doing the right thing, but I guess the main thrust of what I wanted to get across today was that um, I think it's going to be tougher to get referrals and repeats if the agents aren't learning and growing in their efforts to communicate clearly, to over communicate.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
And
I
so
completely agree.
I just want to get away from this idea that just selling the house is a success. It's not enough.
Well, I think what we're basically saying is this, and I'll sum it up for us. Just listing a home and selling it or finding a buyer and selling it is just the job. That's level one. We're in real estate. We help buyers, we help sellers. That's just the job.
You can get paid.
Everyone, you can get paid that way. You can do it. You can ink a deal. You can be done. And there's a lot of realtors. And well, here's the most important stat. 85% of realtors say people said that they would use the same realtor again. Only 75% of people do use the same realtor again.
Oh,
No,
25.
so only 75, only 25% of people use the same realtor again. So what that tells you is it's not enough just to do the deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
What, and you, in the,
So
what I was really going with this whole thing was the proof is out there to show you people want to work with a realtor, but they want to work with a good realtor, and they're not willing to tolerate a realtor that was average.
right. And and so you have to become an expert in communication. You have to become an expert in follow through. Um, and you have to become an expert in the ability to explain what's going to happen. What if something doesn't happen? And you want to cover this because you can explain it after the fact. And typically that involves blame. But how many of you get referrals when you blame other people for what took place? To me, if I have to blame the other agent, then that means that I didn't do enough because I don't think any other agent should be able to put me in a bind. If I properly
Hmm.
explained to my client, if I properly countered the offer to make sure that it's in my client's favor, um, to stand up and say, well, so and so over there didn't follow through and do what they were supposed to do. And it's like, guys, that's going to cause you to lose clients. If you live in that area of blaming other people, you're going to lose clients. You're not going to build a repeat referral business because you should have written things in there that would have prevented this, or you should have explained it to your client, as we've been explaining here on this call, what could happen. And it's like, be honest and get in
Hmm.
front of it. I mean, I know that some people think, why am I going to go down this road and explain things that have never happened and may never happen? Well, go ahead. Follow that plan if you want. I'm
Yep.
telling you that if you want to build a repeat referral business, you want to surprise and excel their expectations and not have surprises and problems. You
So
know,
here's the way that I'm going to kind of wrap this up. So I think the number one reason people don't do the things that we're saying right now, they don't go into the details on the contract. They don't explain the pitfalls of a contract that looks um, obvious. They don't follow up after the closing. They don't do these things, right? All of those things that we say you should do. The reason they don't do them is they don't really want to deal with a problem. They don't really want to have that conversation. They don't really want to have to discuss the EMD issues. They don't really want to have to discuss, oh, you felt a little water, you got a little water in the basement after the closing. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, they don't really want to deal with that. And you know what? Here's what I'm gonna tell them. You don't have to because they're never gonna call you back.
yeah,
You're one and done. They're not gonna be your problem now, and they're not gonna be your problem in the future because they won't call you back if that's how you treat them. So I would encourage you to do what I think what you should do is eat problems for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
yep,
You should specialize in eating your clients' problems, both during the transaction, after the transaction, whatever they need. Go find their problems and solve their problems, guys. This is how we create value.
yep. And I'm going to leave it with one last thing here too. I can go tell the buyer of these potential problems, right? They take, break, or leave, right? What I've learned from agents over the years is that clients have a very creative way of remembering what they want to remember.
Hmm.
And so, one more step to being the consummate pro would be that when you have these discussions, it's good that you've had the discussion, but if you really want to close the circle, you email them and say, hey, I just want to confirm that we had this discussion about why we didn't write in and ask that seller to put money in escrow until the house was given, the possession was given. And you decided, and clearly you decided that you did not want to do anything that would cause that seller not to accept your offer. So you knew you were carrying that risk.
Hmm.
On the sell side, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we talked about the different things and ways that things could go sideways. And you know what? We we know that these things can happen and that there's enough contingencies in here to drive a semi through. And you know what? We can fight it if you want. or we can just sign the mutual release. And Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, just remember that we can't get that money back unless we can get a mutual release. And it's not the realtors that are causing this.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
anyway,
All right, man. Well, thanks for your time today. Thanks for chatting.
well, hey, I mean, I would love to see some scenarios from the agents out there. Give us a scenario that you don't think that maybe we've touched on, or is unique. And I mean, we're looking for the toughest things you can throw at us. We get them every day. We've got, five broker support people, a couple deal doctors. They are on the phones every day dealing with these things. And typically, they're dealing with them after the fact, post.
Hmm.
And it would be so wonderful to be able to have this discussion before it happened versus after, because once it's happened, you can't put it back in the bottle.
Nope, you
All right.
can't. All right. We'll catch
Well,
you later.
yeah.
Thanks, everybody.